so before we carry out our experiment proper, I will just oven around 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Okay, I will now put it in the oven toaster for some time. And the oven toaster only goes up to 15, so I'll just rewind it. Okay? So I'll come back here to this part. So I will just prepare the coffee for the caffeine extraction. Now that our baking powder has finished its baking process in around 25 minutes, I left it for 25 minutes in here. I can now obtain it. And now we're gonna proceed with our experiment. Okay, so now that we have all of our necessary apparatuses here, we can now start with the experiment proper. First, I will weigh 15 grams of caffeine. This is 15.3 grams. Now, I would want to point out that this still has the container cup, so I would still need to do the proper adjustments. Okay, now that I have 15 grams, so remember that this still has the container, so I would still need to adjust that. But anyway, now that I have 15 grams, I will now put it here in my flask. Okay, now the weight of my cup is at 10.1 grams, so I still need to put 10 more grams of coffee in this funnel right here, in this flask right here. Okay, now since my flask weighs at 125.3 and our required is at 135, 15 grams of coffee, I would still need to put 10 grams of coffee here in my flask. Okay, now that my flask weighs at 135.2, we'll just put some more. 5.4, I'll just remove some. Okay. Now that it measures 135.3, this is the 15 grams of coffee that I will need. Now I will add 70 mils of water in this flask. I will be using distilled water. This 10 ml graduated cylinder, I will make 7 measurements so that I will have 70 mils of water. This is my distilled water, and I will put it here. So it seems that my concoction of 15 grams of coffee and 70 mils of water is too few. There are still solid clumps of coffee here. So I'm thinking of increasing the amount, doubling the amount of water. But I will only use around 50 ml of this later. So this is a trial and error. So I will add water so that my coffee will dissolve. Okay, so this is coffee at around 140 milliliters. You see, it's very foamy. I'll do this. I'll cap this na at around 200 milliliters. Okay, so this is now my coffee mixer at 200. I chose 200 because it seems more rational than 140, and it seems more rational to have it seems more rational rather than when it's 70. So this is now my coffee and water. Now I will add my sodium bicarbonate baking soda. Okay, so sodium bicarbonate into the flask. Just a pinch or 2 or 3 or 4. Because I have so much coffee. I'll slosh it. Actually, I'll use my straw. Even though I prepared 200 milliliters of my coffee, water, and sodium bicarbonate solution, I would only be using like 50 ml of this. Now I will be heating the coffee, sodium bicarbonate, and water mixture. I have it here very fast. Put it there. Of course, I will slosh this occasionally so that the heat will be evenly distributed. Okay, so our 15 grams of coffee and our XR 200 milliliters of water has been heating for around 15 to 20 minutes. Of course, we just want to heat them before the water boils. Of course, this also includes the sodium bicarbonate, which I added pinch by pinch. So it's been around 19 minutes. I think this is enough. And we will just let this cool. Now before I let it cool, I will just filter it. Now since we have this, since this is instant pure coffee, I can use this coffee filter. I will let it cool here in this cup here. So I have my coffee cold. I transferred it into this mug. It's a heat sensitive mug, and you can see my grandmother's face is not anymore visible. So we can safely say that it's pretty much cold enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 50 milliliters of this into our secondary funnel. Okay, so that's our first 10 mils. We're going to transfer that in our separatory funnel. I'll first remove the stopcock and place my separatory funnel here. I can now channel my first 10 milliliters of coffee. Okay, so this is my last 10 ml of coffee. I will now put it in the separatory funnel. Now that I have my coffee, I will now prepare my ethyl acetate. Okay, so now we will introduce our organic solvent. I will be using here ethyl acetate, and I will be using this measuring cup. I will then put ethyl acetate that I measured here, and to verify if it is indeed 10 mils, then I will put it here. Okay, let's do that. Now I'm using a 10 ml graduated cylinder, and I'm using 10 ml because I'm going to extract this using a 10 milliliter graduated cylinder 10 times, so that it will equivalent 100 milliliters of organic solvent. I will now introduce it to our coffee. Here, slowly but surely introduce it. And then, now that I have introduced it, I will put now the stopcock. And now I will invert it. I'm going to let this be the one which catches the aqueous layer. Okay, I'm gonna invert now the separatory funnel, making sure it's closed. So that's one inversion. One inversion, and then my second inversion. So then here, all the way from one. Nice. Okay, now we Now this is now our extract, our organic layer. I will put this in a separate flask. I'll put this in the flask where I will be placing it in the distillation tank. Okay, so this was the result of my first titration, separation, extraction rather. So next we're going to do this 9 more times. Okay, just put it here and introduce this aqueous layer onto the separatory funnel. Close this, close. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to distill off the ethyl acetate using our distillation set. And then once this has been dried, we're going to pre-crystallize it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to distill our ethyl acetate so that we would want to have the only thing that we would want to have here is caffeine. We would want to distill it until it's pure solid, so we don't want it to be wet in any shape or form. So here we go. I am now starting my water in, water out. Okay, so now you can see that my organic liquid is now boiling. As you can see, I have here now a distillate on my condensing flask, and I have here my water in and water out. Okay, so it has been around 30 minutes since I first started distilling this. You can only see there's only a little amount of liquid left in this flask, and most of the liquid has condensed into this condensing flask. After we have condensed the contents of this flask to full dryness, then we will use ethanol to recrystallize this impure caffeine into caffeine. Okay, now you can see that there is smoke coming from this part of the distilling column, which means that this is almost at dryness. There's only a little, very little part of the liquid left in the distilling flask. So we'll only wait for a while, then we will proceed with recrystallization. Okay, so this is almost done. I'm not going to let the remaining ethyl acetate distill. I'm just going to let this evaporate. So I'll remove this now. Remove the heat source carefully. And then I'm going to slowly dismantle my distilling set. Okay. Okay, so we have now safely distilled ethyl acetate, and we have now have this caffeine. I'm just going to be heating it once more because there's still some leftover ethyl acetate within the flask. Okay, now that the liquid is gone, we're going to weigh this now. But first, we need to cool it because we need to cool it so as not to damage the weighing scale. Sige, sasalta na ako. Okay, so this is the amount of caffeine that we have recrystallized. Now, this is impure caffeine. We will recrystallize this rather. This is the amount of caffeine that I have extracted. We will recrystallize this to get a more pure form of this substance. Okay, so now that we have here our caffeine, we will recrystallize it so that we can obtain its pure form. So, to here, I'm going to add 15 milliliters of ethanol, ethyl alcohol, and then we'll heat it. And then, of course, I'm going to add some charcoal or solvent until the caffeine is fully dissolved in the ethanol. Of ethanol. I do believe this is ethanol. Yes. I'm gonna slosh it a little bit. Maybe I need to add at least 5 more milliliters. I'm gonna make that 20. And then I'm going to add some charcoal, crushed charcoal, just a pinch, not too much. After that, we will be heating this. Place it. We just want this to be until all of the caffeine has cooled down. So I'm gonna use this turn on. Okay, so since this is too few, I'm going to add 10 more milliliters of ethanol. This is very hot. Still, there's still caffeine in the side, so I'll maybe add another 5 milliliters of water. It seems that our caffeine is still here, so I'm going to add a supplementary 10 milliliters of ethanol. 10 milliliters more. So that takes it to a total of 30 milliliters of ethanol. See that the caffeine is slowly dissolving. I might add 10 more. Caffeine remaining is smaller now. I added 5 more milliliters of ethanol in this flask because there is still some caffeine sticking in the bottom, and I do believe that this caffeine will not leave the bottom of the flask anytime soon. So I will now proceed to filtration. Okay, so this is the only amount of solution that we were able to obtain. Now we're going to subject it into an ice bath in hopes of crystallizing the caffeine. Okay, so initial trials for crystallization yielded no significant effects. So I tried to heat again the solution, and as you can see, there are some crystallized parts here, though they may not be of significant weight, but they do exist. It's very clear. You just gotta wait until it heat the flask heat some more. So we had heated this, so there's only little remaining of the solvent left. So now we're going to treat this in an ice bath. But maybe later we're going to let it cool for a bit so as not to thermally stress the flask. Okay, so now that we have here a soft viscous glue, which supposedly should contain my caffeine, I'm going to filter it now, and we'll see if we can get even the smallest amounts of caffeine. Okay, now this recrystallization of caffeine was unsuccessful because we were not able to recrystallize caffeine. Now, probably one of the factors that affected this recrystallization setup is the excess amounts of solvent. We were able to obtain crude amount of caffeine, right, which is luminescent in this one, but we were not able to purify this caffeine. Therefore, as a recommendation, instead of 45 milliliters of ethanol, I got careless because there was still a lot of ethanol stuck in the caffeine rather that was stuck in the bottom of this flask, which made me realize that I used too much of ethanol. So I was able to caffeine and to extract caffeine from my coffee here, but I was not able to obtain it in its fruit form. I was able rather to get it in its fruit form as I have been showing you during the distillation setup. Maybe because of the factors like there was too much the temperature was too high, or I used too much ethanol and I tried to dissolve it more with more ethanol. It became so that is it for this experiment. Thank you and have a nice day.